think continuing the domestic theme. So okay, so change of leader, not a lurch to the left. Continue shout about Britain and the positives more. Tax policy. Any change within what do you see, Roger? What are you thinking from a tax policy perspective? The budget was farcical last year. Budget speculation started so much earlier.
Yeah.
Where do you see things heading in that way? Is any majors? Any thoughts?
I do have some thoughts. I do think that we've reached the limit of taxing incomes, and a 40% rate comes in far too early. So I would see a new chancellor actually going the tax band, so there'll be a 32% band, a 34% band, and you won't be paying 40% till you're on 100 or 120. And I think if you actually do the spreadsheet, you'll probably find that the yield will be higher.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah,
I think that's very good. And I think I was quite taken by something Roger said earlier this year around consumption taxes. We're again probably on roughly the same page as this. But what I see as maybe also being able to fit in ideologically, because your sensible lefties, sensible far lefties like Yanis Varoufakis, for example, would tell you, do the wealth tax because we don't like the rich, but it won't make any money, right? It's an ideological play, right?
Yeah.
So don't bother with that. Have another rate of VAT, a luxury rate of VAT, right? Have a 40% rate of VAT or whatever, something like that. In fact, I can't remember Roger will remember because he's a far more eminent economist than I am, but there is a concept in economics of the more expensive a luxury good gets, actually demand can go up, not down.
Correct.
Because it shows that it's more desirable, and pricing strategy at the luxury goods level is very, very complicated and normally severely restricted supply. That's a very false restriction of supply. Get on the list for the Rolex or the Bugatti, sir, or whatever.
And there's a behavioral thing there, which is the more expensive it is, the more rich will pay, and that's to show them that they are richer than you, Mr.
Yes,
Lawrence.
Exactly right,
Yeah.
exactly right. And I think, but also look at going back to your communication point, which I support very much. You can communicate. This is how we make it fairer. We don't say it in this way, but look at this stuff that you guys can't afford, that you're jealous of because you see it on Instagram or whatever. Well, now they're paying more for it, and we're putting that money into creating jobs for young people, for example. What a beautiful narrative for a left-wing government.
Exactly.
And everybody could win out of something like that. So consumption tax future taxation still has to go up because the dependency ratio, number of people retiring, number of people we are or aren't bringing into the UK due to migration changes. Who knows what the bloody hell's going to happen with all of that? But also people still have to want to come to the United Kingdom. We don't get to handpick them very often, realistically, right? So realistically, the tax burden's still going to need to increase because apart from the else, AI, medication, we're going to be living for longer and longer again. And so we need money from somewhere. And this is one of the crazy things, this idea that non-DOMs, apart from anything else, the average non-DOM, whether this is true or not, Roger, and I'd love to know your view on it, because it was one of those stats where I don't know where it came from. And it might have come from Henley and Partners, who were trying to move expats here or there in the world and make money out of it. But the average non-DOM pays about 850 grand in VAT a year. Now, let's make that 1.7 million by doubling their VAT rate, right? But let them stay. Don't push them out. Don't push them to Milan. Don't push them to wherever else. Just fix that problem, but tax them accordingly so the people paying for the blood can be happier. But consumption tax is going to be the way forward. And then the other thing I would love to see one of them do, is say, which I would love to have seen Starmer do, right, is say to Trump, this digital services tax obsession that he's got, move over out of your lane, mate, because just because the tech bros are your pals, F off, because the future of taxation is going to be us taxing some of these global multinationals more seriously. And because the intellectual property is in Bermuda, we have to go after their turnover. And let me tell you what, instead of 2%, it's 4%, right? I am going to extract the proper pound of flesh from the companies that make a load of money out of the UK and not let it go offshore. And that then also starts to cover you as AI, robotics starts to become a real wealth inequality problem, because we could get to a place where 6 people have got 75% of the wealth on the planet, and there are I honestly think there'll be a $50 trillion market cap company within a decade on the S&P 500.
Agree with every word of that, Adam. Yeah.
Let's just sort it out, Roger. That's it, right? Out of the bunker, out of retirement, off we go. Me and you, let's get it sorted.
So a potential change of income tax bands. Try and make try and lengthen when someone's paying 40%. Consumption tax and luxury good higher VAT maybe, but that's a would like to have. The lengthening of income tax bands is probably they're going to do something on the income tax. Just can't just keep saying can't keep fiscal drag just doing what it's doing. I mean, well, they can.
Yeah, agreed.
What else? So capital taxes. Whatever else are you thinking?
Well, I'm thinking that if it is leftish administration, then inheritance tax is taxed at your marginal rate.
So it could be 45 if you're yeah. That's interesting. So much planning can be done around inheritance tax.
Exactly.
Do you see the aligning of CGT and income tax rates at any point? I know it's always talked about. And
the problem is it takes less money, doesn't it, in the first several years, and it's not a time to take less money. The bond markets wouldn't like that. I don't know about that piece, and I'd love to know what Roger thinks actually about land value tax, because that's the one that could theoretically change, because every economist ever talked about it for the last however many years I've ever listened to any of them. And the point that's always raised is you can't move the land, which kind of pertains to what I said about tax the turnover of the big tech companies and the Starbucks of the world, right? So do you think, Roger, that any of the people in the mixer would consider a land value tax to have any merit?
Well, I'm one of those economists who says in principle it's a total no-brainer.
Yeah.
But then realpolitik means we've got to remember that a lot of the people who are in Westminster have a vested interest in land-based assets.
I always love the behavioural approach because it tells us what's really going to happen at the end of the day.
So we should have it, but we won't.
Good.
Anything else on the taxation front?
I mean, the wealth tax thing has got to be considered because, like I say, are there political points to be scored somewhere? I don't think straight away. We all know it won't work and won't make more money. It might make the same money. It will drive a few people out. I'm not quite as well. If you drive all the entrepreneurs out, blah, blah, blah. If you drive half the entrepreneurs out, the other half will do more and make more money. So I'm not sure that leaves a huge gap. But I do think that the big corporates are a bigger problem as far as legal avoidance and marginal tax rates go versus the big individuals.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Yeah.
But then I was taken the other day by the bounce back loan figures have been updated in terms of how much the government has had to bail out. And the sad thing is, as a massive fan of small business, as a small business owner, I love the S end of SME, right? It's brilliant. I'm obsessed with it. But all the bloody bailout money has had to go to the small 50 grand bounce back loans. It's where nearly all the fraud has been. The very large loan schemes, I think, hard at 0.06% the government has had to make in terms of guarantees. Whereas at the small end, it's like 28% or something. And it made me really sad to read those figures, because whenever you hear small business owners going on, I do feel for people running coffee shops who've got terrible business rates to deal with. And we've got a couple of sites where we basically run it for the benefit of the local authority. And, that doesn't stick very well in the craw. But then we also have ways where we take money back out of the local authority. So I shouldn't be as critical as all of that. But it is a bit of a shame that small business let itself down quite so much. But what I found interesting is a few of the banks recently have been doing 50 grand loans a bit more easily for some of the businesses I'm involved in. Some of that maybe is AI running over the transactions that you're doing, I suppose.
Yeah.
But the bounce back loan seems to have given them a bit of, well, actually 50 grand's quite a good amount of money to lend this small business, and the terms aren't bad. They're at sort of 8 or 9%, not unreasonable finance terms for an SME, sometimes PG, sometimes not. But it's been heartwarming to see the last sort of 6 months, maybe 9 months now, not only large businesses, but small business are borrowing money again to invest, even at the new world interest rate. So there's a lot of positivity there in terms of where growth will be. I'm just a bit worried about the jobs, to be honest with you. A bit worried about the jobs.
I do think, well, you triggered something in my mind. I do think the inland revenue is going to go big on AI, and a lot more people are going to get letters saying, "Is there anything you'd like to tell us?"
Yeah. And I mean, there's got to be some seriously significant low-hanging fruit in there. Imagine if you ran it across the land registry, for example. It wouldn't be that hard to pick up a few people who, oh, here you are at your 1.7 million pound residence there, and here you are on 10 other properties, but on your tax return you don't declare any rental income. Well, that seems unlikely, Mr. XYZ. Let's have a little chat about that, shall we? So there will be a big hit coming on stuff like that. And remember, anyone listening to this who's sweating listening to it, there is still an amnesty scheme that is being ended fairly soon. And look, they've just let Angela Rayner off, so you'll probably be okay.
Yeah.
Probably be okay.
Ignorance.